Hello and welcome to Strength for Tomorrow Radio with me, Stuart Thompson. It is episode 81, I believe, and it's been a while. I think it's been like the whole summer. I can't remember the last time I did one, and everyone keeps asking, "Do you still do the podcast?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sort of." It's just been so busy, and I say this every time for the last couple of times that we've been doing it, but it has been crazy busy. But we're back, and it's just a quick little thought. It's not going to be a huge episode, so you don't need to set aside an evening to listen. You can listen in the car, wherever you are. Keep both hands on the steering wheel. Follow all the rules. But the title is Your Insecurities and Your Kids. I was going to call it Don't Get Your Stink on Your Kids, but that might really offend people or confuse them. I'm not sure which is worse. But first of all, I should say that I'm not here to tell you what to do with your kids or how to teach your kids or how to raise your kids. It's none of my business. I'm kind of new to the business myself, 4 years into the gig, and I've no plans to resign so far. But something I've been really aware of since having children, which I thought I would share, is being careful about discussing our own insecurities when they're around. If you have kids, you know they're like little sponges, right? They are like little super spies. They're like Mossad, MI5, all rolled into one. They hear things that they're not supposed to hear, and they don't listen whenever they're supposed to listen. You're telling them to get ready, you're telling them to do something, brush your teeth, and they just like don't hear you. But if you've got kids, you'll understand that. And if you've got kids, this is probably why you're listening to this episode. If you haven't got kids, you can still maybe get something from it because there's some important points to take away, I think. But I'm determined to not basically let my crap rub off on my kids. Not physically speaking, well, physically speaking, but more metaphorically speaking. The point is that all of us have insecurities about our bodies, about our appearance, that we feel a little bit weird about. Everybody has these. I promise the best looking, fittest, most aesthetically gifted person that you know has something about themselves that they'd love to change. And in the age of social media and reality TV, etc., it's so easy to judge someone only by their appearance. You see someone for 2 seconds and you immediately judge them. Go, just split second without even realizing that. We all do it to some extent, some of us more than others, I guess, but someone we have never met, we maybe never will meet, and we don't know anything about. We don't know anything about their character. We don't know if they're a creep. We don't know if they're lovely. We don't know if they're like as nice as your granny. We don't know what they're like, but we're exposed to more beautiful people than ever through social media and other things. Just they pop up all the time. So depending on your algorithm, I get like fitness people up all the time, and they're all incredible physiques, right? And this can whip up all sorts of insecurities in us if we let it. It's hard to avoid. It's something I think we have to constantly fight back against and to be aware of and to process it and acknowledge it. But we can't protect our kids from all the crap that's in the world forever, right? So there's so much nonsense and so many just horrible things going on in the world, and they're going to discover those themselves at some stage. They're going to find out that there are lots of judgmental, selfish, harsh, fickle, mean, just really hateful people out there. Not everyone's cool, not everyone's nice, not everyone's friendly or has their best interests at heart, but they'll probably also start to think more about their bodies and care more about their appearance as time goes on. They'll pick up on little things, little imperfections or blemishes, and they'll identify things about themselves that they don't really like, that they would like to change. And that's only going to get amplified, isn't it, through social media and phones, etc., etc. We don't need a rant or a little talk on that. But if I start, for example, calling myself fat, I'm so fat. Look how fat I am. Or I start saying stuff like, my body is disgusting, or, oh, I feel so gross. I just look so gross today. Or a classic thing, and I'm going to be sexist here because this is something that I know females say an awful lot. I wish I was skinnier. I would love to be skinny, right? Don't deny it, girls. You all said it at some stage, right? As if that's the ideal, to be skinny, right? Skinny people in the world and victims of famine, and it's not a good look. I promise you, it's not healthy and it's not a good look. I detest the word skinny, unless it is used accurately for reporting purposes. But to say that's an aesthetic goal, it really irks me. But I digress. But other things like I wish, or I want, or I hate, etc., etc. You can think of all the little phrases maybe you say and I say as well. If I'm constantly berating myself in front of my kids and they're listening, just think about what that does to their worldview, about their perception of themselves. What is that going to do about? What is that going to do to their own confidence, to their own self-esteem? It's likely going to normalize this type of attitude to their own body, that they should judge their appearance, be self-conscious instead of being free and oblivious to all those things for as long as possible. Now, I'm not saying that that state can last forever. It cannot. We're going to get older. We're going to grow up and eventually start realizing these things. And then the more we interact with the world, the more it's going to be pronounced, and we have to kind of fight back and constantly manage it, right? The whole parenting thing is new to me. As I've said, I'm 4 years into it. Lots of you listening maybe have lots more experience than I do, and you're much wiser and more disciplined, and you're more patient than I am. Hands up. To be honest, my wife does about 80% of the parenting at the moment, and she does a very good job of it. But maybe I'm wrong about this, but it's so easy for kids to pick up and then mimic our insecurities, right? And maybe they will eventually, as we said, but the more aware we are of how we think about ourselves and our bodies, the longer we can prolong this to an age where they're closer to adulthood, when they're closer to an age that they have the skill set, they have the brain power and the mental tools to be able to deal with that in a healthier way, to be able to process it, and then realize that it's not the only thing that matters in life. And don't get me wrong, maybe you do hate the way your body looks, right? As I said, we all have something about ourselves we would like to change, right? We all have those little things. Maybe you are carrying more body fat than you would like. Going to bring it back to the whole fitness thing and away from the whole parenting thing, because I'm not a parenting expert and I never will claim to be. But maybe you're carrying more body fat than you'd like, subcutaneous or visceral or whatever. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong to hate the way your body looks. Some people will be like, no, of course it's wrong. It's always wrong to hate the way your body looks. In some ways, the way I see it is our feelings are kind of irrelevant when it comes to our body composition. At the end of the day, it's just statistics. Whenever you reduce it down to that, that's exactly what it is. But because we are so intertwined with our bodies, some of us believe in soul and spirit and things like that, and it's very hard if you don't think of it yourself in terms of soul and spirit to be thinking, this is all I've got, my body's all I have. And we can start to feel really emotionally involved with it, right? So our weight goes up, we feel sad. Our weight goes down, we feel happier. We lose muscle, we feel sad if you're a guy, and some girls. And this kind of seesaw effect, because of how our body's sitting, how it's looking after Christmas, before Christmas, holidays, etc. I'm leaner, I'm happier. I'm fatter, I'm not as happy. If we kind of let that determine our self-esteem, or our level of happiness, our level of our place in the world, then we're going to be in for an absolute roller coaster, aren't we? So if we put on a few inches in our waist, or we grow out of our clothes, we feel more insecure, we feel less happy, and it can really become a vicious circle, because whenever you're unhappy, whenever you don't feel great about yourself, you're going to start eating junk. You're going to start indulging in sugary, highly processed, crappy foods, right? We've all been there. It's like comfort eating, as it's technically termed. I'm not saying that you should ignore these feelings or these thoughts. All I'm saying is that it probably isn't a good idea to inadvertently lecture your kids about it constantly, whether you're aware of it or not. Can you see how this might impact their attitude towards their own body and their psychology around perceiving others? Hopefully you can see that. You can acknowledge those thoughts. I'm not saying that, just push them down and never think about them, never deal with them. You can acknowledge those thoughts if you aren't happy with your body, and leverage them to make some better decisions. Leverage them to do something meaningful about it, like fuel your discipline, to train regularly, to take the stairs more, to walk more, to lift more, to snack less, to eat better, to sleep better. Our unhappy thoughts can be leveraged into something more positive, to make better choices. I'm not saying you should deny them or ignore them, because that can lead to even more unhealthy decisions down the line. But if you feel insecure about your body, is it something that you can change? How do you know? Maybe you can change it. Maybe it's like a hair transplant, right? I'm starting to go bald. Maybe it's like a hair transplant. I'm not getting a hair transplant, by the way. But Maybe it's like something like that, which is going to cost you a lot of money and there's risk involved and there's no real long term payoff, right? Or you can just shave your head. Or maybe it's a nose job. Maybe it's Botox. Maybe it's, I don't know, you fill in the blank, right? If you feel insecure about your body, is it something you can change? Is it something you can change for very little money? Is it something you can change for the long term? How do you know? If it's something in terms of body composition, a lot of us like to blame our genetics for how our body looks, for our weight, for our waist size, for our muscle mass. We like to blame our genetics. My question is, how do you know that your genetics are dictating the way you currently look? Have you tried to change it for long enough to know? You can't change your height. You can wear high heels. You you're you're kind of stuck, but you can build more muscle. You can reduce your waist size. You can um, get more active and more metabolically healthy. You can do this. You can. I promise you. I believe in you. If you apply yourself to the process for long enough to see how your genetics actually present themselves. There are lots of great reasons to train. So many great reasons. And your kids, I think, are up there near the top of the list if you have kids. You want to be around to see your kids grow up on their wedding day. When they have kids, you want to experience that in a body that won't hold you back, that won't limit you, that you won't feel tired prematurely in, that you can enjoy them with, and also without an array of medications propping you up. I'm telling you, you do. If you don't think you do, you will at some stage, okay? That's all I really have to say in this. I could go on and on. It's been like, 10 or 12 minutes, but I'm sure we could keep going on. But I think the point's been made. Our kids are extremely impressionable. They are going to see and feel and experience enough crap in their young lives that will be hard for them to process, much more than we did growing up. Life was so much simpler, wasn't it, in the 90s and the 80s? Boys, I dare feel old saying this now. Back when I was a young fella. But they don't need us adding to their confusion or unhappiness by expressing our insecurities and then projecting them onto them. And that's it. That's it in a nutshell. I'll say it again. They don't need us adding to their confusion or unhappiness by expressing our insecurities and then projecting them onto them. Hope this was helpful. Please don't think I am setting myself up on a pedestal or thinking that I am some sort of parenting expert. I'm not going to bring out any parenting books. It's really is a learning curve, isn't it? We all make mistakes as parents. We all say things in front of our kids we wish we hadn't said, we wish they didn't hear. But I think this is a really important one. It's one to bring awareness to, even how we talk to ourselves internally. And it's not something I'd really ever thought about whenever I first started cross-functional fitness. It wasn't really a topic or a thought, but more recently, just as my kids are starting to grow older, it's something that I don't want to project on them, and I'm going to try as hard as I can not to. How we think of ourselves, even if you feel insecure, right? Even if you're a dad and you're carrying a wee bit more weight, right? You haven't gotten to where you want to be with your training, your progress yet, and you've got sons or something. Just whip your shirt off and get in the sea, right? Go for a swim. Don't feel insecure. Don't be like, oh, I'd cover myself up. I'm a wee bit chubby. Just whip it off. Get in, okay? Your t-shirt, okay? Everything else. But do I get where I'm coming from? How we think of ourselves, how we even talk about ourselves internally, it's good to bring recognition to how we actually deal with ourselves and how harsh we're maybe being with ourselves, so we can process it better. Bit of a shorter show this week. It's probably going to be less than 15 minutes here, but these are just a few thoughts that I got as I was working in the office today and listening to stuff. And I wanted to elaborate on that thought trail that someone else was thinking about, and I really liked that thought, so I wanted to bring it from my perspective. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully it was helpful, and I will see you next time. And in the meantime, make sure you train today so you can be stronger tomorrow.